Good evening, dear students. Welcome to Bajirao IAS Academy, the Hindu news analysis. Today is 14th September 2024, and today we have some important articles for the discussion. And one by one, we'll try to discuss all these important articles. You all knew that yesterday there was a prelims practice question, and the question is the term unicorn company often seen in news, and what is the unicorn company? And in fact, a unicorn company is a company which is privately held company or privately held a startup company, and a company's total value is above 1 billion US dollars, and such companies are being called as unicorn companies. In India also we have a lot of unicorn companies, and one such example of a unicorn company in India is Uber, and you can see the definition of unicorn company. A unicorn is a startup company founded after 2003 which has a current valuation of more than 1 billion US dollars, and in fact based on the total valuation of the company, so companies can also be categorized into minicorn, sunicorn, unicorn, and decacorn, and even hectacorn as well, right? So any company so whose total valuation is above 1 billion US dollars, and such companies are being called as unicorn companies. And in fact in India the startup ecosystem has been gaining a lot of momentum, and in fact a lot of new startups have been emerging as a unicorn companies or companies which are valued above 1 billion US dollars. And today also I have another very important prelims practice question. It is based on current affairs. The question is, which of the following Indian cities name recently changed as Sri Vijayapuram by the Union government? So the options are A. Kavaratti, B. Port Blair, C. Indore, and D. Bhubaneswar. So try to answer this question. This is also a very important question, and there is also a chance that such questions may reflect in your examination as well. So therefore try to answer this question in the comment section, and correct answer we will be providing you in tomorrow's class. And the first article that we are going to discuss is with an editorial which is given in the Hindu newspaper, and in fact this particular article is very important from your general studies paper 3 point of view, because infrastructure as a topic is given in your general studies paper 3, right? So this topic is that a crumbling infrastructure in India and the solution. So in fact we have a lot of aims and aspirations. We wanted to become a Vikasit Bharat or developed country by the year 2047, and we also wanted to become a $5 trillion economy by the year 2025, and we also wanted to spend more than 100 lakh crore rupees on infrastructure development. So therefore in order to achieve those objectives, infrastructure development is very important in India. However, as of now Indian infrastructure sector has been facing a lot of challenges, and which have been withheld, which have been resulting in the slower pace of a growth rate in India, economic growth and even economic development as well. So recent reports on the collapse of several under construction bridges from or in the state of Bihar underscores a significant quality control and even project implementation issues which are existing in India's infrastructure development. So therefore we need to be concerned about such news coming out from different states, particularly with respect to constructing or building quality infrastructure. So infrastructure quality maintaining standards is very important, particularly so we wanted to build infrastructure which is resilient to the climate change induced or climate change driven disasters. So in order to achieve infrastructure resilience, we must look into the quality and also the standards of infrastructure building. And in fact the government also aims to transform India into a developed nation or Vikasit Bharat by the year 2047, right? So we wanted to become Vikasit Bharat by 2047. So this particular aim and objective of India can be achieved through emphasizing on infrastructure improvements through initiatives that the government has already launched. The initiatives including Pradhan Mantri Gati Shakti National Master Plan, and also the Smart Cities mission that the government has launched to make sure that holistic and all-round development is achieved in the urban areas, because urban areas are considered as growth engines of India. So therefore overall the smart cities program as well as the Gati Shakti PM Gati Shakti National Master Plan, also aimed at the infrastructure development and also ensuring the quality and also the standards in infrastructure building. So however, so in fact the union government has also decided that the capital expenditure particularly on infrastructure construction and infrastructure development would be increased manifold, and in fact the government decided to increase capital expenditure to 11.11 lakh crore in union budget 2024. And in fact this particular infrastructure sector has been facing a number of persistent and consistent challenges, including time delays and even cost overruns as well. Now generally with time delays and cost overruns, what happens is that the total project cost would further increase manifold. Now imagine that the government has launched project A, however this project has to be completed by the year 2025, so the project total estimated cost would be around 30,000 crore rupees, right? So this is an imaginary project. So however, due to some reasons the project would be further delayed and this project would be expected to be completed by the year 2035. So since the project would be delayed, we cannot ensure that the project cost would be just 30,000 alone, right? So delays in the implementation and construction of such infrastructure development projects would also lead to the cost overruns, and overall this project would cost the government around 40,000 crore because of inflation, right? So at this point of time the government cannot afford time delays and also the cost overruns as well. However, the majority of the infrastructure projects in India which have been launched have been facing such serious problems, right? So how project delays and cost overruns have been impacting the government exchequer and also making that the infrastructure development projects have not been completed on time. So as of December 2023, so around 431 infrastructure projects with the total investment of rupees 150 crore have been experiencing the cost overruns totaling 4.82 lakh crore. So therefore it has been highlighting the severe financial inefficiencies which have been existing in India's infrastructure development projects. So out of 779 delayed projects, particularly the infrastructure projects, 36% of the total projects were behind the schedule by 25 to 60 months, and with 23% delayed by 13 to 24 months, and even 15% by over 60 months as well. So they have been indicating a systematic issue in timely project completion and timely project implementation. So therefore, in order to reduce the cost overruns or in order to prevent the cost overruns, we must prevent the delay in the implementation of the projects. So we must make sure that the quality and the standards in developing infrastructure projects should be maintained, and those projects would be completed on time as well. And in fact, these delays in the implementation of the project and also cost overruns imposes additional financial burden on the government. How it imposes the additional financial burden, as I have already discussed, that this is how the additional financial burden on the government exchequer, and in fact additional financial burden would also leads to the diversion of a significant amount of funds from other crucial projects and even social welfare programs, and even inflating the procurement costs. So thereby overall it hinders the infrastructure development and infrastructure growth in the country. And in fact you could also see 6 important components of Pradhan Mantri Gati Shakti National Master Plan, right? So apart from that, there are certain gaps as well which have been existing in the project management. So when we talk about such gaps which have been existing in the project management, the current project management practices have been revealing gaps in planning and also execution, especially in urban infrastructure where there is often insufficient capacity and oversight by the local self-governance institutions, right? So apart from that, there is also inadequate planning as well. So during project project conception stage results in increased expenditure, right? So generally the expenditure on the projects which have been already launched have been increasing because of multiple reasons, particularly the inefficiencies which have been existing in the development of such infrastructure projects. So therefore, in this context, in order to reduce the delays in the implementation of such infrastructure development projects, so it is very important that there should be effective project management and planning. They are very important and essential for managing large scale infrastructure development projects. And apart from that, modernizing project management practices, so with real-time data management and even global test practices, is crucial, and it is important for improving the efficiency and also the effectiveness of infrastructure development projects, right? The global standards and even the global quality standards must be implemented in existing Indian infrastructure development projects. So that is very, very important to build more efficient and more resilient infrastructure in India, and that is the need of the hour at this point of time. Because imagine that infrastructure projects are being constructed, being built, and those infrastructure projects lacking the quality. And imagine that a government started an infrastructure project, and the life of such infrastructure project is expected to be around 25 to 30 years. But due to the poor standards of constructing such infrastructure projects, so the project exists only for 15 years from its completion. So therefore, the expected life of such project is 30 years, but project exists only for 15 years, and such projects would not be sustainable for India. So we need to make more resilient and also more sustainable infrastructure development projects, because at this point of time, so we could not spend a significant amount of research, a significant amount of resources on just reconstructing the existing infrastructure projects. So therefore, whatever infrastructure projects that we have been constructing, we should try to make them more resilient and also sustainable, and that is the need of the hour. And in fact, there is a need for a program management approach as well. So one such example is Shendra and Bidkin industrial corridor, so that is existing in Maharashtra, exemplifying this program management approach. And in fact, under this program management approach, so we need to project execution usually involves coordination with multiple projects to optimize the existing resources use and also achieve a unified objectives with respect to the resource use efficiency and resource management and human resources management when it comes to the execution of such infrastructure projects, right? So resource use efficiency in any project implementation construction is very, very important, because that would significantly reduces the cost overruns when it comes to the implementation of such projects. And when it prevents the cost overruns, there is also a high probability of finishing or completion of such projects within the due date. And also the author has been suggesting, in order to build resilient, sustainable and efficient infrastructure systems in India, there is a need for establishing an agency to conduct professional courses. So such agencies would specifically look at the project management and skill development, skill building and professional management of such infrastructure projects. So everything akin to the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. So that kind of an agency will enhance the project execution and improve standards, improves quality, and also developed a skilled workforce for India to make sure that infrastructure is built in an efficient, effective, resilient and sustainable manner in the future, right? So we have a lot of aspirations for India, specifically with respect to the infrastructure development. So keeping this need in mind, there is a big need for establishing such an agency at the national level as well. And in fact, a substantial amount of taxpayer funding or taxpayer money is being allocated for the infrastructure development. So therefore it is imperative and it is very very important to implement the robust program management systems to prevent project failures and also ensure efficient usage of existing resources for future ready infrastructure as well. So that is how India could achieve some of its goals and objectives of becoming the $5 trillion economy by the year 2025 and becoming the developed country or becoming the Vikasit Bharat by the year 2047. So every goal of such nature can be achieved by having a strong infrastructure or building infrastructure which is resilient to the climate change driven disasters. Remember that climate change also posing a new challenges for the existing infrastructure. Now in this context, climate change has also resulting in new disasters with higher intensity and frequency. So therefore infrastructure must be resilient to such disasters. So overall focus should be on these things to achieve the goals of becoming $5 trillion economy or becoming the third largest economy in the world or Vikasit Bharat by 2047. I hope you have understood this article in a very detailed manner. So next article is also very very important, and this article is very important for general studies paper 2 point of view. And in fact, if you have the political science and international relations optional also, so this article is very very important because India is a strong supporter of United Nations reforms, and India has also been seeking the a place at the global high table, which is United Nations Security Council, and India has been very actively advocating for the reforms at not just United Nations, reforms of institutions of the multilateral governance, right? Institutions of multilateral governance. However, as of now, the problem with the institutions of multilateral governance is that they are not reflecting the current realities. Rather, they are reflecting either pre-Cold War or even Cold War realities of the world. However, world has changed a lot. In fact, global south as a collective voice has been increasing its weight at the global platforms, and in fact most of these economies are fastest growing economies. They are now military superpowers, and most of the people are living in the global south. But global south's representation or adequate representation in the institutions of multilateral governance was denied by the global north. So therefore, in this context, India as a leader of the global south, India has been very actively advocating for the reforms of the United Nations. So in this context, so we will understand so how UN as a system is failed, and what sort of reforms that India has been demanding, and how these reforms would benefit the global south in general and India in particular in the short term and also in the longer term. So we'll try to understand this. First and foremost, we'll try to understand the context of this article. The context is that Prime Minister Narendra Modi is all set to address the United Nations Special Global Summit. So this United Nations Special Global Summit is the UN summit of the future in New York, right? So this will be the summit that the Prime Minister Narendra Modi is going to address, the summit in New York, the headquarters of the United Nations. And in fact, the UN summit for the future also aims to forge a new international consensus for better future. So that would be the objective of this particular summit that is to be held. Okay, so its aim and objective is to create forge a new international consensus for better future. And amid this, concerns are growing about the effectiveness of the United Nations in addressing the global challenges, and also highlighting the need for significant reform within the organization of the United Nations. And we'll try to understand how United Nations system is ineffective in recent times, even after the establishment of United Nations and its Security Council, how it has become ineffective, and how different countries have been calling for the reforms within the United Nations Security Council. So we all knew that United Nations as a system which was established after the failure of the League of Nations, and the objective of establishing United Nations is to prevent another world war and also secure global peace. So therefore it was established after the end of the Second World War in the year 1945. And in fact, the initial membership of the United Nations was just 50 countries, but as of now around 193 countries are members of the United Nations. However, the United Nations is increasingly perceived as ineffective in dealing with the modern challenges which have been existing, right? So this is where the United Nations or other countries have been demanding the reforms within the United Nations system. And in fact, United Nations as an organization has been struggling with the geopolitical tensions that these countries have been facing. For example, when I say the geopolitical tensions, United Nations and even United Nations Security Council largely failed to find a feasible and a sustainable solution for this Hamas and Israel conflict, in particular Palestine and Israel conflict in general, right? So and then Russia-Ukraine war also, Russia-Ukraine war, and existing Afghan situation and crisis in Middle East, Africa. So therefore we could say that geopolitical tensions were existing across different parts of the world, but United Nations as a system at the global level is has largely failed, and it has been struggling as well because of the geopolitical tensions and the existing wars at the global level. And in fact, it also failed to live up to its foundational goals as articulated by early figures like Dag Hammarskjöld. So Dag Hammarskjöld was one of the Secretary General of United Nations, and he openly said that United Nations as a system, as an organization, failed to live up to its foundational goals, based on which the UN was established, because UN has not been representing the current realities, right? So world has changed realities, the world has changed a lot, but as of now UN as a system just representing the Cold War realities, or the world which was existed after the end of the Second World War. And in fact, the current UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has also emphasized the necessity for reforming United Nations outdated multilateral system. And in fact, not just the Secretary General Antonio Guterres, but also several other geopolitical experts and even the leaders from different countries have also been pointing out towards the fact that UN has now become irrelevant, and it has become outdated. And if UN continues this way, over a period of time, countries would lose respect for UN, because it has been becoming more and more ineffective organization at the global level, right? So therefore there is a need to reform United Nations as an outdated multilateral system. And in fact, United Nations is very often framed as it is a choice between reform and rupture. And in fact, a lot of countries in Latin America, Africa, and even South Asia have been collectively demanding reforms in the institutions of multilateral governance, particularly the United Nations. But on the other hand, the existing United Nations Security Council permanent members, they have been enjoying the veto power. They are reluctant to share the seat of United Nations Security Council with other member states, and that is where the problem starts. And in fact, that is how it is considered as it is a choice between reform and rupture. And in fact, the United Nations foundations are usually influenced by the early 20th century Western intellectuals who favored the Anglo-Saxon dominance. And in fact, this Anglo-Saxon domination has further led to shaping the institution's original framework, and therefore the mindset which persists in various forms, affecting the overall efficiency and functioning and responsibilities of United Nations adaptability and inclusiveness over a period of time. So as of now, United Nations is criticized as a body which is not representative, which is not democratic in nature, because it has not representing the wishes and aspirations of the entire world. Rather, it has been representing the wishes of a very few dominant countries after the Second World War. So those countries which were dominant, which were powerful after the end of the Second World War only. So therefore there is a need to reform the United Nations Security Council, and there is a need to include new members to be part of the United Nations system. And in fact, we all knew that as of now, United Nations as an organization has been struggling to address conflicts which have been existing, the contemporary conflicts, the geopolitics and contemporary wars such as Russia-Ukraine war, and even the Gaza-Israel conflict, and even UN largely failed to implement or to enforce the sustainable development goals. We all knew that we have 17 sustainable development goals, and these 17 sustainable development goals have to be achieved by the year 2030. However, the key focus should be on the global south, because global south collectively is a region which has been facing a lot of such problems which have been mentioned in the sustainable development goals. So in this context, sustainable development goals implementation requires adequate technology, and it also requires finances. So therefore, in this particular context, it is very important that UN should play an effective role in convincing all the developed countries to adequately transfer technology and finances to the global south, so that all the sustainable development goals can be achieved by the year 2030. But however, as of now, UN seems ineffective as an organization to enforce these sustainable development goals as effectively as possible. However, there are reasons for such a thing, because the reasons for the ineffectiveness of the United Nations is due to the existing internal efficiencies, the geopolitical conflicts, right? So in fact, the World Trade Organization's dispute resolution mechanism is also stalled due to US vetoes, US repeated vetoes, right? So there's a huge domination of the powerful countries, and those powerful countries often deny representation to countries in the global south at the global high table, such as United Nations Security Council. So therefore, UN as a system, particularly United Nations Security Council, needs to be immediately reformed, and more members, aspiring members, have to be included in the United Nations Security Council. So particularly G4, and G4 consists of Germany, Japan, Germany, Brazil, and India. So the organization which has been formed consisting of India, and this particular organization has been demanding reforms within the United Nations Security Council, and these members are aspiring members to be part of the United Nations Security Council. And in fact, India's permanent representative to the United Nations, Ruchira Kamboj, has time and again criticized United Nations Security Council's overall ineffectiveness in resolving these global conflicts or the wars which have been creating instability across different parts of the world. So we could see that it is very much visible that UN largely ineffective in preventing Russia-Ukraine war, and even preventing this Hamas and Israel conflict as well. So therefore, it usually it results in questioning of the United Nations capacity to provide solutions to the pressing global issues as of now. And in fact, External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar has also highlighted the reluctance of the existing permanent members. So what are those 5 permanent members of the United Nations Security Council which have been enjoying the veto power? It is also very important you just remember those 5 permanent members of the United Nations Security Council, including China, France, UK, US, and Russia. So these are 5 permanent members of the United Nations Security Council, and these 5 permanent members have been enjoying the veto power within the United Nations Security Council. And our External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar has time and again has highlighted that these 5 permanent members have been reluctant to reform the United Nations Security Council and to alter the rules that would usually diminish the power of these 5 countries. So therefore it has been underscoring a major barrier to meaningful reform within the United Nations Security Council. So however, when we talk about the future of United Nations and what should be the India's role, whether India should be given a representation in the United Nations Security Council. Now India is an aspiring nation, and India in fact one of the India is a military power. We all knew about that, right? So India is a military power, and India is also a third largest economy. So India is a third largest economy. So in terms of purchasing power parity, but in terms of GDP, so India is the 5th largest economy, right? So in terms of GDP, India is the 5th largest economy, and apart from economic it is an economic power, it is a military power, and India has 18% of the global population, and India has also became the country with the largest number of population, even overtaking China as well. And apart from that, India is one of the contributor of United Nations peacekeeping force. So in fact, India has always committed to peace and stability of the world, and India is also one of the largest contributor of security forces to the United Nations peacekeeping force. In fact, more than 5 permanent members of the United Nations Security Council. And apart from that, India is also democracy, and it is the largest democracy in the world, and India has never attacked any country at first instance. And other significant thing is that India is also a responsible nuclear power, and apart from being a nuclear power, India's nuclear doctrine, if you look at India's nuclear doctrine, so India has adopted no first use nuclear doctrine, so that essentially means that we will never use nuclear weapons at first instance, right? So all these principles and all these capabilities of India have been indicating that India is a rightful claim. India has a rightful claim to the United Nations Security Council permanent membership. So therefore reforms is the need of the hour, otherwise United Nations as a system will lose its relevance over a period of time. So as of now, the United Nations current structure is increasingly viewed as outdated and which has lost relevance. So in fact, with many non-English speaking countries have been gaining influence but struggling to effect a meaningful change within the organization. So even though a lot of countries in the global south collectively raising their voice against the domination of only few countries within the United Nations, so these countries in the global south largely failed to bring a meaningful reforms within the United Nations in general and Security Council in particular. And in fact, Prime Minister Narendra Modi may use this particular summit that he is going to address to advocate more prominent role for emerging countries such as India and even Brazil, because Africa as a continent which has also denied representation, Latin America has also denied representation in the United Nations Security Council, but on the other hand Europe has over representation. So all these things have to be looked into, and all these countries have to be committed to push for reforms within the United Nations Security Council within the existing UN framework. So therefore, overall emphasizing on the need for reform and better reflecting the global power dynamics. And in fact, Prime Minister Narendra Modi's address could include discussions on the need for a greater representation and also effectiveness in the UN operations, so aligning with India's broader push for reform in the international institutions, right? So this is what is about UN reforms or reform of institutions of global governance. We all knew that UN as an organization has been lost its relevance. And it has become more and more outdated, and countries in fact becoming largely they largely viewing the United Nations as an ineffective organization, because UN as an organization failed to prevent the geopolitical tensions which have been existing at the global level. So therefore, reforms within the United Nations Security Council and United Nations is urgent need of the hour. So the reforms or the UN should represent the current world realities. So next important article is about the artificial intelligence and the role of artificial intelligence. So particularly there's a project called Project Strawberry, and we'll try to understand about this Project Strawberry, which is also very important, which is given in the Indian Express newspaper, and this is very important for your prelims examination. And apart from prelims examination, so from gender studies paper 3 point of view, especially science and technology portion, so this is artificial intelligence is a very important. So Open Artificial Intelligence has launched a new artificial intelligence models, so which are being named as Open Artificial Intelligence. So this has launched a new artificial intelligence models, so they are being named as O1 and O1 Mini, right? So these are two different artificial intelligence models which have been launched by OpenAI. And in fact, so O1 model, which is also an artificial intelligence model, is part of OpenAI's secretive Project Strawberry, right? So this is part of Project Strawberry of OpenAI's secretive Project Strawberry, and it has been focusing on enhancing artificial intelligence reasoning abilities. So however, so this O1 model of this Open Artificial Intelligence is designed to tackle the complex tasks in science, coding, and even mathematics, and the O1 model usually represents a significant leap in the artificial intelligence capabilities, right? So in fact, this O1 model is engineered to approach particular problems more thoughtfully, mimicking humans like problem solving, right? So this is the overall aim and objective of this O1 model of artificial intelligence, which has been developed by OpenAI. And in fact, this O1 model of artificial intelligence would also further analyzes and evaluate the queries from the multiple perspectives, because it usually mimics the human like problem solving. So therefore it evaluate the queries, different queries from multiple perspectives, and checks its outputs and also learn from its errors that have already been made. So all these things which are being performed by O1 model of artificial intelligence usually mimics the human like problem solving skills. And although the new models usually lacks the ability which is being required to browse the web or even process the uploaded files and images like GPT-40 model, so they can refine their thinking process by trying new strategies and also recognizing their own mistakes, right? So we should also talk about the performance. So when we talk about the performance of this O1 model of artificial intelligence, so in mathematics contest, so this O1 model solved 83% of the problems, and in fact a major improvement over the earlier versions that solved only 13%. right? So it is also a significant improvement in the O1 model of the artificial intelligence, and in coding task it even outperformed 89% of the participants, and that is how this O1 model of artificial intelligence has been significantly improved in recent times. So you could also see some ethical issues with the artificial intelligence in this image. And in fact, so when we talk about the availability and access of this O1 model of artificial intelligence, so it is being available within the Chat GPT, which is also an artificial intelligence platform, and it is available in Chat GPT for Plus and Team subscribers, with a weekly messaging limit of 30 for 01 preview and 50 for 01 mini variants of the artificial intelligence. And in fact, this open artificial intelligence plans to expand the availability and also introduce a feature for automatic model selection, which is based on user prompts. And so what are the basic differences between this Vo1 model of artificial intelligence and Vo1 mini model of artificial intelligence? So this O1 model of artificial intelligence, it actually offers advanced reasoning, problem solving abilities. So it is suitable for complex tasks and applications which have been requiring a deep problem solving capabilities. However, so when we talk about Vo1 mini model of artificial intelligence, so which is considered as smaller and it is also faster and more cost effective version of this O1 model, and it is 80% much cheaper than the O1 model, and it is designed for efficiency in coding tasks and applications where extensive world knowledge is less critical or less required, right? So this is the basic difference between the artificial intelligence model 01 and 01 mini, which is being developed by Open AI artificial intelligence network. And today we have one very important mains practice question. This question is very, very important from your general studies paper 3 point of view, and also general studies paper 2 to some extent, because there is a section called social justice in general studies paper 3. So therefore the question is, critically examine the performance of Manrega scheme, which is Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act of 2005, and what are various issues which have been existing that need to be addressed to improve the overall performance of the Manrega scheme. Now, as of now, if you look at the Manrega as a scheme which has been facing a lot of issues, right? So it is very important to address such issues which have been existing within the Manrega program. So we'll look into this particular question. So how can we approach this particular question? How can we structure this question? So first and foremost, you could briefly write or introduce. So what is Manrega? What is Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act 2005? And then you could write about the performance of the Manrega scheme so far, so how it has been performing, and then write the challenges which have been existing in the implementation of Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act, and finally you conclude the answer by mentioning way forward for better implementation of this Manrega program. So this is how you could actually structure this answer, because structuring is very, very important. So with right structuring, you could score good marks in your answers, right? So as I've already told you, you could briefly introduce about the Manrega program. So Manrega as a program was launched in the year 2016, right? And in fact, Parliament has passed Narega Act, MGNREGA Act in the year 2005, right? So in fact, 100 days of legal guarantee of a work is the objective of MGNREGA Act of 2005, which has been passed by the Parliament. So therefore it was launched in the year 2006, and in order to provide 100 days of legally guaranteed employment to the rural households. So eligible rural households who are willing to do unskilled manual work, right? So that is how it was defined. And in fact, Manrega scheme is considered as one of the largest scheme which is run by the Ministry of Rural Development. You should also remember the ministry. So which usually controls which usually oversees the implementation of the MG Narega program, right? So after writing introduction, you could briefly write performance of the MG Narega. So how MG Narega has been performed so far. Now if you look at the performance of MG Narega, so it is like a mix, both positives and negatives. We could say that MG Narega has all success. It is a complete success. Both there are both positives and negatives. So MG Narega is a labor program which is meant to strengthen participatory democracy in India at the local level. So MG Narega would further strengthen the participatory democracy through the community works. And in fact, MG Narega is considered as a legislative mechanism, so with the overall objective of strengthening the constitutional principle of right to life under Article 21 of the Indian Constitution. And in fact, so when we talk about Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act, so it has actually helped in increasing rural household incomes, and it has provided income security for the rural households, and it also played a very important role in economic empowerment of women, making financially independent, financially self-reliant. And because in Manrega program there is a higher woman participation, and 1/3 of the total work days and the total number of workers. As of now, in rural areas, more than half of the workers are women. So, but 1/3 of the total, work days would be reserved for the women, or total workers would be reserved for the women. So it has not only helped in increasing the groundwater table, because the activities which are being taken up by the MG Narega workers, which has resulted in the increasing the groundwater table, because they create community resources, but it also helped in substantially improving the agricultural productivity, mainly cereals and vegetables fodder crops. And Manrega program has also resulted in the water conservation measures, including creation of farm ponds, and they dug wells, and they have also made a significant difference in the lives of the poor people across different parts of rural India. And in fact, according to a study which has been conducted by a New Delhi based Institute for Economic Growth, so this study by Institute of Economic Growth has revealed that there has been an 11% increase in the rural household income because of the Manrega program, and there has been 5% increase in the cereal productivity, and also 32% increase in the vegetable productivity because of the Manrega program. So all these are positive outcomes because of the Manrega program. But Manrega program is not a complete success. It has been facing number of challenges as well. So when we talk about such challenges which have been existing in the Manrega program, so insufficient budget allocation is one problem. And so every year in the union budget, the allocations for the Manrega program have been constantly or regularly being decreased. So that is a cause of concern, right? So in fact, there is a demand for increasing work days within the Manrega program, but what has been happening, the work days are being reduced. The funds are dried up in many states due to lack of sanctions from the central government, so that particularly hampers the work in the peak season. And corruption and irregularities which have been existing, so this is also another major problem within the Manrega scheme. So funds that usually reaches the beneficiaries are very little compared to the actual funds which allocated by the government for various welfare schemes. And corruption and irregularities within the Manrega is one of the main reason for the failure of Manrega program in certain reasons. and there are also a lot of ghost beneficiaries which have been they're not attending the work, but they're taking the benefits of this Manrega program. And there is also discrimination which has been existing, because there were frequent cases of discrimination against women and people from the backward classes, so which has been reported in several regions across the country. And in fact, vast number of such incidents are mostly unreported, and they are not usually registered in nature. And apart from that, so if government fail to provide employment to the eligible rural household within 15 days of time, so it is the responsibility of the respective government to provide unemployment allowance to the employee who has been seeking work under the Manrega program. However, as of now, so non-payment of this unemployment allowance is one of the major problem. So there is a huge pendency in number of unemployment allowances being shown in the management information system, which is also known as MIS. So therefore, so either work should be provided to the eligible rural household, or this unemployment allowance should be given to them. And apart from that, there is also lack of awareness about the Manrega program among the people, particularly it is being implemented in the rural areas. When we talk about people from the lower backgrounds and women, they are not fully aware of the benefits of the Manrega program and its provisions, and that has been leading to uninformed choices and even inability to get the benefits of the Manrega program, such as the unemployment allowances and all. And poor infrastructure building is also another major problem within the Manrega scheme, right? So infrastructure, the community assets that they work on, that they build, so they are very often poor quality in nature. So improper surveillance and lack of timely resources result in poor quality assets within the Manrega program. So therefore, what should be the way forward in this context? The way forward is that adequate allocation of budget funds, a timely payment for the workers, and complete decentralization of the implementation is the need of the hour. So you could write such a way forward. You could also write some suggestions to overcome these challenges. And ultimately, because of the climate change, because of the growing unemployment levels, there is also a sustained demand of increasing the number of work days from 100 days to 150 days, and this demand should also be considered, particularly in areas which have been affecting with the severe drought and agriculture crisis, agriculture distress, and there is a widespread unemployment. So therefore, Manrega also plays a very important role in prevention of migration from the rural areas to urban areas. And MG Narega also make sure agriculture more and more profitable, and it also further rejuvenate or improve the existing local resources as well, right? So that's all about this question, and thank you so much. So if you have any doubts, please comment those doubts in the comment section. And if you like our work, please try to subscribe our YouTube channel and also hit the like button. Thank you.